time is flying without fun. It's an interesting. It's one of those times in life where I'm challenged against a very long-held belief. Right? Doesn't it seem counterintuitive? It's hard to believe that we're already in August. In case you're, well, I was going to say in case you're curious. If you weren't curious, you wouldn't be listening to the show. My overall take on this subject has been fairly consistent. The lockdown, after a few weeks, was a major catastrophe. It's a bigger catastrophe than COVID. I've held that consistently. What has not been held consistently is the object of the lockdown. The object of the lockdown was not to overwhelm our hospitals and ICU unit. Been completely changed. Even, remember, I had a Houston emergency room physician 3 weeks in a row where we were told that, it's just overflowing in Houston, and he said we're doing fine. But after all, who are you going to believe? The emergency room doctor in Houston or CNN? Right? That's how it worked. When Rahm Emanuel's brother, Ezekiel Emanuel, a doctor, said, we're going to have to stay shut for a year and a half until vaccine. But the man is mad. There will be, the devastation will last a generation. That's decades. The harm will be severe. And he turns out to have not been unrealistic. This new rule, the number of cases has to be going down or has to be less than it was 14 days earlier for California and other states to allow people to make a living. The numbers of cases, do you realize that I want you to look at cases in the overwhelming majority of cases as vaccines. That's how I look at it. You have, I don't know, 10,000 cases, 10,000 people have been vaccinated, and 20 of them will be hospitalized. I'm just picking out numbers. This is not scientific. I did record it in my fireside chat, which goes up Thursdays on the Prager U channel, about hydroxychloroquine, what has been done, the smearing of those wonderful doctors. Had a black woman been smeared, who was black woman on the left, been smeared by the right, it would be called white supremacy, white privilege, racism. It would be inconceivable. Inconceivable. The age of the lie, brought to you by the left.
Inconceivable!
That's correct. Where's that from? Do you guys know? It's from The Princess Bride? Oh. Who was the, Sean, you guys know your stuff. Who was the first grip on that film? Look at that. Crickets. These guys don't know.
Anybody want a peanut?
What does that have to do with the first grip? It's from the same movie? Oh. This is where we're at. Listen to this. Daily Mail and other sites. The land with no face masks. Holland's top scientists say there's no solid evidence covering work and warned they could even damage the fight against COVID-19. As I walked around the sun-dappled streets of Amsterdam, something felt strange in this world swept by fear and pandemic. There was laughter coming from barges sliding along the famous canals. Clusters of cyclists clogged the streets. Shoppers dipped into chic boutiques. The barber shops seemed busy, and cafes served couples chatting over coffee. It took me a moment to realize what was so weird. Then it struck me. It felt like I had stepped back in time, returning to the pre-pandemic normality of a bustling city filled with human beings whose faces were not covered by cloth. Holland's top scientists, having examined key data and research, have declared there is no firm evidence to back the use of face coverings. Indeed, they argue that wearing the wretched things may actually hamper the fight against disease. Cone Behrens, spokesman for the National Institute for Public Health and the Environment, said, "Face masks in public places are not necessary. Based on all the current evidence, there is no benefit, and there may even be negative impact." The Dutch disagree with the world to the delight of all the citizens I spoke with in Amsterdam. "I hate wearing them," said Aisha Meziati, 29, in the hip fashion store Das Werkhuis. Studies by one membrane specialist at Eindhoven University found that while the coronavirus particles are caught by an electrostatic layer in medical masks, they can penetrate bigger pores found in cotton and even vacuum cleaner bags. The World Health Organization also has been skeptical, warning that, quote, "widespread use of masks by healthy people in the community setting is not yet supported by high-quality or direct scientific evidence." Although changing its advice in June to back the encouragement of mask wearing in some settings, the WHO lists 11, quote, "potential harms," unquote, that range from discomfort through to self-contamination and lower compliance with more critical preventative measures. The one family I found wandering along the canals clad in face masks turned out to be holidaying Italians from near Milan. "We've been wearing them all the time for 5 months so they don't feel uncomfortable anymore," said Michaela Müller. He said that they had been astonished when they arrived in Holland. "We drove through Switzerland where everyone has a mask, then in Germany where it is also mandatory. Then we crossed the border and suddenly no one was wearing them." Yes, indeed. Did you hear about the woman who threw hot coffee at men who were dining without a mask? This is not the society I grew up in. A generation of no sustainable values, no developing of courage and character has had its impact. I never thought of Americans as a sheep-like group. We have to wait 14 days. This thing, apparently, it's just very contagious, my friends. Are we going to do this every time that there is going to be an epidemic, a virus? Is that it? Is that the end of society? We are allowing that to take place? It's also partially because people were spoiled. There's no recognition that tragedy is part of life. Nobody read Dostoevsky to 8th graders who said in Brothers Karamazov, "To live is to suffer." And that the absence of suffering is an incredible achievement on any given day, let alone through a lifetime. America made that possible for more people than any other place. But if you don't think tragedy is part of life, You have no gratitude to America.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
This mail-in ballot idea is catastrophic. Here's what the president said.
I don't want to delay. I want to have the election. But I also don't want to have to wait for 3 months and then find out that the ballots are all missing and the election doesn't mean anything.
Is that not a legitimate concern? Here's Steve on the Mike Gallagher Show in the ReliefFactor.com studios. Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks.
My thought on it is I'm all for the mail-in ballots, but count every one and verify every single one. And Trump stays in office until you get that done. and when you have Biden up by 2% and you identify more than 2% fraud in a state,
right.
they're
Right.
disqualified.
Yeah, but
So
and of course, and if Trump,
when you get
and if-
8% in California fraud,
Yeah.
California's out.
yeah. Listen, I'd make you the voting commissioner, but it isn't going to happen. Ain't going to go that way. They're going to count the ballots. They're going to say, oh, Joe Biden has won in a landslide. We've counted the votes. Trust us. Just like the Postal Service told me this morning. If you'd like us to call you back, we'll call you back, and you won't lose your place in line. When the customer's on the line, press one. It was another 19, 20 minutes of music waiting for them. The post office is a disaster right now.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm a board-certified emergency physician for 20 years. In fact, until seems like 5 minutes ago, I was considered a hero, and people would be clapping and glad that I was doing what I was doing. And then the video came out, and I was summarily fired for appearing in what was told to me is an embarrassing video.
Dr. Simone Gold, one of the colleagues of Dr. Dan Erickson, who was with us for the whole first hour. Doctors on the front line who held that press conference this week here in Washington, D.C., that was met with a viral response when Breitbart posted the video of these medical professionals talking about the coronavirus, hydroxychloroquine, and everything that I guess you're not supposed to know. That was almost instantly taken down and then blocked. And now we hear that Dr. Gold, for appearing and simply making statements of fact, has lost her job. If you missed our hour with Dr. Dan Erickson, the last time he was on, it garnered our most popular video ever, 820,000 views. Go to YouTube and watch that and our new interview. Look for me, Sebastian Gorka, America First. Subscribe, hit the notifications bell twice, and watch that interview. We've reached out, she's responded, and we will be joined by Dr. Simone Gold next week to find out more about what it means to speak the truth in this nation.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
People haven't really worked out what does it mean to be a Christian in a culture that is telling you to do things perhaps that you disagree with.
Want to remind you, in keeping with the subject as it happens, flattenthefear.com It's a campaign from terrific people at Job Creators Network Foundation. They've partnered with doctors from across the country to give Americans the facts about living with the coronavirus. That includes presenting facts about reopening our nation's schools, doing it safely. Facts are not in dispute. The fatality rate for people under the age of 20 who contracted the virus is 1/5 of 1%, more than 100 times smaller than Americans over 60. American Academy of Pediatrics, even they want the schools reopened. Go to flattenthefear.com, get a lot of data from doctors. Flattenthefear.com. I will not insult you by spelling flatten. But the is THE. 1-8-PRAGER-776. There is no room for dissent in the United States. If you don't agree with the left on any subject, you are an inferior human being. What was done to those noble doctors who gathered in Washington by the left is exactly what was done to Brett Kavanaugh. That's all they can do is smear. There's no courage on the left. You're a mob. The mob has no courage. The mob are bullies. You have a different position. I read to you, it's so interesting that I see on the internet, Dennis Prager's against masks. Wherever I'm asked to wear a mask, indoors, outdoors, don't, please, unless we're congested. It's an absurdity. It may be an absurdity indoors, but I do it because people are part of society. People ask you to enter, or indeed you can't enter. So I do it. I don't protest. I try to avoid places that make that mandatory, but if it is, it is. Well, I read to you the CDC from just a couple of months ago said masks were useless. Fauci said masks were useless. But he goes along with the mob. I don't know if they are. I don't know. I don't know if anyone knows that. But you're not allowed to dissent. That's the issue that I'm raising. The left, for all of my life, prided itself in this. We don't see things in black and white. The right does. The self-delusion of leftists is worthy of a lifetime of psychoanalysis. A lifetime. Okay. Stockton, California. Mark, hello.
Yes, do you believe the doctors at the CDC are predominantly leftists?
I have no idea.
It seems that you're implying that.
Really? Why do you infer it, since I didn't imply it?
Because you seem to think that all these doctors think that the people who prescribe against hydrochloroquine have an agenda.
Yes, that I do believe, correct.
Okay, so you think they're leftists?
And with regard to hydroxychloroquine, there's no doubt in my mind.
Okay. So you think thousands and thousands of doctors in the United States are leftists?
Yes, I do. I think thousands and thousands also believe in hydroxychloroquine. Doctors, there's a New York Times piece in March, how doctors gathered vast amounts of hydroxychloroquine for themselves and their families. Doctors are divided just like lawyers and sanitation workers. Why would they be any different from anybody else? You think that doctors are superior to other human beings? Tell me, answer my question, because I answered yours.
Because they're divided about 95%.
I'm sorry. It's not clear. Perhaps you put on a mask while we were speaking.
Because they're divided about 95%.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Call again. Look, I took you because you differ. I like to talk to people who differ. It's an amazing, foolish belief that doctors are superior human beings to Uber drivers. Doctors run the gamut of a-hole to saint, just like every other group on earth. Unfortunately, because they're in the sciences. You would think that it wouldn't be tampered. How about all the thousands of scientists who said that it is a healthy thing to demonstrate against racism? Was that political? Or was that scientific? So when doctors say that hydroxychloroquine works, they're on the right. But if doctors say hydroxychloroquine doesn't work and can even hurt you, which is an unbelievable claim, given how safe it is, and we have more than half a century of its regular use, there are countries where you don't even need a prescription, it's so safe. You buy it like cough drops. It's a very, very, nobody could have predicted this. The war over this drug. And by the way, it's not just left-wing people in the sciences who hate Trump more than they love life. It is also big pharma. Gilead has billions of dollars in research in what is it? Remdesivir, which is thousands of bucks a pop versus a couple of dollars. If hydroxychloroquine works, so their investment in remdesivir is wasted. There was a piece by that I read to you yesterday. The former French health minister, a major MD in France, the health minister of France, spoke about meeting with the editors of The Lancet and the New England Journal of Medicine a couple of weeks ago. And they spoke about the pressure from pharmaceutical companies to come out with studies to crap on hydroxychloroquine. All of a sudden, the lefts are big fans of big pharma because they love big pharma more than they hate. Let's put it this way: they hate Donald Trump more than they hate big pharma. There is so little talk about the damage done by the lockdown compared to cases. Look, more cases. The fact that there are so many more cases and the death rate is so low and the hospitals are not overflowing, isn't that an indication of how non-fatal this illness is to people who are not in a nursing home? To people, it is so rare to die of this if you are under 80, let alone under 60. Back in a moment.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.
So you know the reason why we're in this situation is because of China. Where is the administration on encouraging American companies who are operating and manufacturing in China, especially PPE? How are you enticing them to come back to the United States to manufacture those types of goods? Because a number of these boxes you buy at the store for masks and such say made in China.
But we're also making them here now. We have plants making all over, like Honeywell and companies that you wouldn't think of for making this kind of stuff. They're making the certain types of masks, especially the doctors, for what the doctors need in the hospital, the 95s. They are doing, I went up to one of the factories in Maine, and it's incredible, one of the plants, and it's incredible what all of these companies are doing. We're starting to make a lot. But you'll be seeing over the next 2 weeks, I'm doing something that's extremely bold, and you'll see, I think you'll be extremely impressed by it. Look, I've been fighting this with China for a long time. Yeah. You had the globalists, they want to make everything in China. We can make our pencils here. We don't need 57 pencils for every kid. You can have 2. And look, I'm very upset with China. I think what China did is a disgrace. Whether they knew it or not, I won't get into that. But one thing, they knew it well enough that it didn't get into the rest of China. But it did get out to the rest of the world, including Europe and the U.S. Then they tried to blame it on Europe. Then they tried to blame it on American soldiers. They did everything. It's a China virus, whether you like it or not. It's a China virus, and you got 20 other names you can give it. But I am very angry with China.
So just to reiterate, you have something coming on enticing American companies out of China.
Something very strong.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Texas. Roger, you're on The Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Yeah, what I heard gave me a big thrill. It said that a lot of police departments are going to pull out on security for the Democrat convention.
Yeah,
and I found that exciting.
That's right. 100 agencies that had agreed to participate in security for the DNC have now pulled out.
Yeah, and I said, I told both of them on a recording, I know they won't hear it, but their staff will. I said, I hope to God you can't get one single policeman or woman to come to protect for security. And I said, it's added feature for us to want to watch. Why don't you fly in those peaceful protesters from Portland at your expense and let them cut loose? That'd be fun to watch.
After all, they're peaceful. Just bring them on in. 100 agencies that had apparently agreed to participate in providing security for the DNC in Milwaukee have now pulled out. Milwaukee City Council has deprived the Milwaukee police of the use of tear gas and pepper gas and other apparent non-lethal uses of force. And so these agencies feel that they really can't do their jobs. I'm sure the hostile attitude toward the police by the Democrats didn't help any, but it's one thing to be hostile towards the police, another thing to essentially disarm them and still tell them to do their jobs. And so 100 agencies have now said they're not coming to Milwaukee to provide security for the DNC. We'll see what happens.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
For almost 20 years, I've been searching for evidence of one of the greatest miracles of the entire Bible, the miraculous parting of the Red Sea.
Tim, the first question most people ask is, where's Mount Sinai?
Okay, everybody, you're listening to the Dennis Prager Show. Once a day in August, which is fundraising month for Prager University, I have a Prager Force young person. We have 10,000 members of Prager Force around the world. Damon Crawford is a Prager Force student, a freshman at Regent University in Virginia. Damon, hi, it's Dennis Prager.
Hello, Dennis Prager. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much. When did you join Prager Force?
I joined back in 2018, I believe. It was the fall of 2018.
So you were in high school?
Yes, sir. Yes, I was.
And where was that, in Nebraska?
Yes.
Where in Nebraska?
Scribner, Nebraska was where I lived at, and I went to high school in West Point, Nebraska. It was about 12 miles. I'd be north of Scribner.
Yeah, which doesn't help those of us not from Nebraska. So how far are you from Lincoln, let's say?
Okay, about, I guess, we'll say 15 minutes north of Fremont, or of Omaha.
Oh, you're by, so you're, okay.
Lincoln.
Oh, then you're outside of Omaha, in effect.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice triangle in between the three.
Did you realize growing up that being in suburban Omaha, Nebraska was somewhat of a blessing?
Oh, no, I was from rural Nebraska. About 700 people in my whole town.
Oh, okay, even better.
Yeah, no, I by no means grew up in the city, that's for sure.
So how did you feel? Did you feel bereft of city life, or did you feel lucky? Did you feel both?
It was definitely bittersweet. I saw a lot of things that a lot of kids didn't see growing up. Probably more of the the country side of things, I mean, grew up on dirt roads and stuff like that, and there wasn't as much culture and stuff like that. So it's kind of a dry life, not going to lie.
Right. No, I understand. I agree. That's why I said that bittersweet is a perfect way of expressing it. So now you're in Virginia, and
Yes.
but are you on lockdown, or is Region having classes?
They are having classes. We do have to wear masks and keep our distance and stuff like that. But I think for the most part, they're trying to make it as normal is going to get anymore for us.
So I want to understand something. I don't know. I don't know what it is like in Virginia, but in California, private schools as well as public schools are not allowed to open. What is the story in Virginia?
So yeah. Pretty much here, it seems like Region's pretty private, and they're kind of doing as much as they can, pushing. It seems like to continue to start. Most schools, I think, are actually staying online, but it doesn't seem that Region is following those guidelines. I think they're just trying to do as much as they can.
So have most of the Region students shown up, or are some afraid to go?
I think most are going to be there. Most starting freshmen and stuff like that. We start the 17th. I think most people are going.
I think that's great.
Yeah, I love it. It's incredible.
That's great. How did you discover PragerU?
PragerU. Okay. Well, through my high school classes and stuff like that, my teacher would bring up Prager University videos to show in our history class, in our government class. And so it was always like one of the campus reforms, not campus reform, but like Will Witt doing his skits on the campus and stuff like that. So, and I really I fell in love with it. So I continued to watch the videos on my own, and I love Ben Shapiro, and so I really just all those guys brought me to Prager University, and then I figured out I could join the team more and be more involved myself. And
well, you'll meet great people your age through Prager Force. I mean, I am so impressed with the young men and women who are members of it. You're very lucky, actually, to have an ability to meet such people. Let me ask you something that I forgot to ask yesterday because it was the first day of the fundraising. But I always ask this, and the amazing thing is, if my listeners can verify this, I always get a different answer. So here goes. Do you have...
All right, I'm ready for it.
Okay. Do you have a favorite PragerU video?
Okay. If I had to pick out of all of them,
right?
I think I'd probably say, I guess the mini documentary probably doesn't count, but that would be my favorite. Fleeing California. However, Ben Shapiro's "Facts Don't Care About Your Feelings" is up there as well. I love that.
Good choices. Back in a moment, and want to remind you folks about Riduzone. This is a product that has actually, I think, 2 patents. And it's a very remarkable product in that, yes, it is 2 patents. It's the only FDA-accepted product that includes OEA. OEA is the molecule that your own body produces to help you feel full faster, so you burn stored fat. And it helps reduce your cravings for fattening foods. It comes with a no-questions-asked 30-day guarantee. Doesn't work? Get your money back. Riduzone is exclusively available at riduzone.com. Use the promo code Dennis to immediately save 30%. riduzone.com, promo code Dennis.
But we're now looking at having to do something. You know, we have to be asked to go into a city like Chicago, which is so ridiculous, where they had like 68 shootings and 18 deaths over the weekend. It's not even comprehensible. Mm-hmm. Worse than Afghanistan, worse than any war zone. And so we're supposed to be asked. She is supposed to call the mayor, Lightfoot. Lori. She's supposed to call, and she's supposed to say, we need your help. We call her. Would you like to have us go in? And they don't want us. And I say, what's going on? We are going to have to do something very comprehensive because we don't want to sit back and watch this.
So what is that going to be?
Easy.
What does that mean?
Well, it means sending people in. Just sending people in to clean it up.
So it'd be nationalizing the National Guard?
By the way, the Chicago police are great. They're great. But they're not being allowed to do their job. The greatest example is New York. What's happening in New York? Crime is up 358%. Shooting. Nobody's ever seen numbers like this. They're not allowed to do their job. And if they do their job, if they do it well and it gets a little bit rough, they're afraid that they're going to go to jail for the rest of their life. So we are very tough on it. We are dealing behind the scenes. We're saying you better get going. There's a point at which we're allowed to go in, and that point is rapidly being reached. But we were going into Seattle. We did go into, if you look at the Minneapolis event, you remember that event when they lined up and they just walked right through those streets like there was nothing, the National Guard. But there's a point at which we will have to do it because we just have to do it for the good of the country. And a lot of people say, don't do it. That's a local problem. That's good for you politically. I don't care if it's good for us or bad for us. We can't let this continue on. And I say to the police, you are loved, you are respected. This is a small group of crazy people. Just stay where you are. It's going to be turned around. It's going to be a turn. You're going to have, people better be very careful because you are going to have a backlash that's going to be incredible. People better be very careful what they wish for because the American people are not going to take it very much longer.
For almost 20 years, I've been searching for evidence of one of the greatest miracles of the entire Bible, the miraculous parting of the Red Sea.
Tim, the first question most people ask is, where's Mount Sinai? My first question as a geographer is, where was the sea that was parted and crossed?
So what do you think the crossing site, where would that be?
Well, for once, I'm going to follow the conventional argument here.
When I look at the Exodus story through the eyes of a scientist, then it contains a lot of observations which just make sense to modern science.
I think it is possible to demonstrate
All right, everybody. Just want to remind you, we're doing really important work to try to save this country, and it is embattled. The future of this country is not assured at all. So help PragerU, right? Good people are divided between those who fight, those who help the fighters, and those who do nothing. Those who help the fighters are just as important as the fighters. So a final word to our Prager Force young man. I look forward to meeting you, Damon. Damon Crawford in Virginia. He's from Nebraska. So I'll put you on the spot. You have 30 seconds. Tell people why you think it's important for them to contribute to PragerU.
Oh, yes. Okay. So Prager University, it's the things that you're not being taught in high school. These are very important aspects of every children and Americans of every American's life. They need to know these things that PragerU is teaching, that such as religious morals and morality and all kinds of these things that just high schools aren't teaching anymore, that they don't feel are important. They're teaching the history correctly, the way it should be taught. They're not hiding the facts. They lay it out there, and they say this is what it is, and they're not lying to the kids. It's everything it is, just
perfect.
Right there, PragerU.
That's right. We teach what isn't taught. That's our motto. Well, listen, Damon, I really look forward to meeting you.
Yes, I'm very excited.
Thank you so much. All right, just go to PragerU.com or 833-PragerU. It's when I hear that a teacher shows them in a class, it is. I sort of want to embrace that teacher because it goes so against what is taught. 2 generations now since World War II have been taught nothing. You realize that? Nothing of importance. they've been taught how to make a living. They go into law, medicine, physics. I get it. Gender studies. Make a good living in gender studies. Amazing thing. Society can afford 1,000 professors, great salaries in gender studies. A discipline that has truly advanced the human condition. Indeed. All right. Nick in New Orleans, Louisiana. Hello, Nick.
Hey, I just wanted, I like what you were saying about the masks. I'm an ER doctor, and I've been reading about this since this all started because I believe this is so all overblown. And one particular point about the masks versus hydroxychloroquine, I believe the evidence for both is not in. I don't think it's 100%. I think there's evidence that masks might work. I think there's evidence that hydroxychloroquine might work. But I agree with the general opinion that the evidence is not yet in. I don't think we can go either way. But on the one hand, masks, the evidence is not in, but we're okay to be forced to wear them. It's a law. You have to wear this thing that hasn't been proven. But hydroxychloroquine hasn't been proven either, and it's the law. You can't even discuss it. We can't even bring it up. It's preposterous.
It's a superb point. You've made a superb point, Doctor.
Can I make one other point about hydroxychloroquine and Fauci? He's been lying about it because he says that the evidence is it doesn't work. That's not true at all. The evidence is it's not conclusive yet. In other words, we don't know yet. It's not in. That means we don't know if it works, and it means we don't know if it doesn't work either. So he's lying about that. And he made the same point about a drug for MERS years ago in the same category as hydroxychloroquine, and he was gushing about that drug with the same kind of studies as evidence.
That's
and so
right.
he's completely contradicting himself.
So let me ask you, and I want you to just say what, and I'm sure you will, but I want to reassure you it's important that you know, say what you believe. If you or a loved one were tested positive, would you take it?
Yes, I would take it because even though first of all, we do that with if I'm worried about dying about a disease, we take drugs that are lethal. If you have stage 4 cancer, you might take a drug that's experimental. But this drug has been around for decades. The one side effect they're pushing that is a concern is the prolonged QT interval, which is a cardiac arrhythmia. But we use drugs like that all the time that cause this, and we know how to minimize those effects. For example, I don't know if you've heard of Zofran. It's for vomiting. Zithromax is an antibiotic. Biaxin, lithium, and a couple of antidepressants that are commonly used. I think Celexa. They all cause these same problems, and I get a warning when I order these drugs all the time. Look, this drug might cause...
There's a warning with every drug.
But I always say ignore it and move on.
There's a warning with Diet Coke. I mean...
Exactly.
So I am curious if your colleagues at your hospital heard you now on national radio, how would they react to you?
That's a good question. A lot of doctors would agree with me. Some are still kind of I don't know if they're saying their opinion though. It's hard to say for sure because you get criticized if you give the opinion that I'm giving. So, I have spoken to many doctors that.
Why do you believe
my infectious disease specialist? Infectious disease is what this disease is. He puts people on hydroxychloroquine. Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. That's quite all right. I want you to speak. But why do you think that is? Why would you get so much criticism?
Oh, I think the media is biased because of what Donald Trump pushed the drug, and they're not worried about the facts. It's clear cut. Even the medical establishment has joined in on this by the FDA putting out a warning for the prolonged QT interval. We've known about this for years. I don't know why we need the FDA to talk about this new. This drug has been prescribed for decades. We don't need any new information on it. Doctors know how to prescribe the drug. We know about this side effect. We know how not to give it to certain patients. We know all about this. The fact that the medical establishment is coming out and telling doctors they can't use a drug, we use drugs off-label all the time. Doctors do this all the time without being attacked for it.
All right, one final question.
Yes.
There's no way for you to know the answer. We all know that. I'm just asking you for a hunch. How many doctors are in your hospital? This is not a hunch.
How many doctors work in my hospital?
Yes.
Oh, my guess is 50. But I work in the emergency room. I don't talk to doctors on the floor, internists, and
all right.
those
So,
types.
how many emergency room doctors are there?
About 10.
Okay. Of the 10, they all come down positive COVID. How many would take hydroxychloroquine without telling anyone?
I think at least half.
Thank you.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm a board-certified emergency physician for 20 years. In fact, until seems like 5 minutes ago, I was considered a hero, and people would be clapping and glad that I was doing what I was doing. And then the video came out, and I was summarily fired for appearing in what was told to me is an embarrassing video.
Dr. Simone Gold, one of the colleagues of Dr. Dan Erickson, who was with us for the whole first hour. Doctors on the front line who held that press conference this week here in Washington, D.C., that was met with a viral response when Breitbart posted the video of these medical professionals talking about the coronavirus, hydroxychloroquine, and everything that I guess you're not supposed to know. That was almost instantly taken down and then blocked. And now we hear that Dr. Gold, for appearing and simply making statements of fact, has lost her job. If you missed our hour with Dr. Dan Erickson, the last time he was on, it garnered our most popular video ever, 820,000 views. Go to YouTube and watch that and our new interview. Look for me, Sebastian Gorka, America First. Subscribe, hit the notifications bell twice, and watch that interview. We've reached out, she's responded, and we will be joined by Dr. Simone Gold next week to find out more about what it means to speak the truth in this nation.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
People haven't really worked out what does it mean to be a Christian in a culture that is telling you to do things perhaps that you disagree with. At what point do you cross that line?
God has put restraints in the world because sin is in every human heart. And when millions of sinners collide with each other, the potential for complete disruption of any kind of normal life is there. So God restrains with the conscience and the law that he wrote in the human heart. That's individual restraint. In the family, with the discipline of a mother and particularly a father. In the society, with the police who bear the sword. That's the ultimate weapon, the threat of death, to protect those who do good and punish those who do evil. And then finally, the influence of the church. So what we've seen in our society is the destruction of the human conscience, wiping out the law of God, retraining people's brains with homosexuality, transgender, immorality, you name it.
Anyone can watch Prager University courses anywhere in the world for free, and we want to keep it that way, but we can only do it if we have your support. Go to prageruniversity.com and donate today. The left says follow the science, right? If you differ with them, you're anti-science. This is commonly stated on the left. So, of course, it's a phony line because whatever the left says is phony. I know that sounds overstated. I believe it literally. I'm not talking about liberals. I'm not talking about conservatives. I'm talking about the left. They use words in order to gain power. So they say follow the science, right? And it's all anecdotal about hydroxychloroquine working. Okay. So do they follow the science on police racism? George Floyd was killed, and therefore there were riots over police killing blacks, wantonly killing blacks. Breonna Taylor, she was killed because she was black. I don't even know if they saw her. They were shooting through a door, to the best of my knowledge. But in any event, the science shows, liberal political scientists who have studied this, it's extremely rare for a policeman, white or black, to kill an unarmed black. And more unarmed, and by the way, most of them, I read you the whole list. We should put that up. Every single one in 2018 was analyzed. Was it by who? Was it Matt Walsh? They don't follow the science on the issue of police racism. Facts are the enemy of leftism. They just say follow the science when they want to commandeer an issue. I tell you, the luck that Joe Biden has, that he doesn't have to appear at all in public. And they're going to try to get out of these debates. I will be a very surprised American if the Democrats do not shatter the debates. Already, Thomas Friedman of the New York Times said, don't debate unless Donald Trump reveals his tax return. There's never been a condition on debating since the debates were started half a century ago. But there is nothing in American life that the left won't shatter. Debates is the next. Okay, we continue. A lot more to talk to you about. I'm Dennis Prager. Back in a moment.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.
But we're now looking at having to do something. You know, we have to be asked to go into a city like Chicago, which is so ridiculous, where they had like 68 shootings and 18 deaths over the weekend. It's not even comprehensible. Mm-hmm. Worse than Afghanistan, worse than any war zone. And so we're supposed to be asked, she is supposed to call the mayor, Lightfoot, she's supposed, Lori, she's supposed to call and she's supposed to say, we need your help. We call her, would you like to have us go in? And they don't want us. And I say, what's going on? We are going to have to do something very comprehensive because we don't want to sit back and watch this.
So what is that going to mean?
Easy.
What does that mean?
Well, it means sending people in. Just sending people in to clean it up.
So it'd be nationalizing the National Guard?
By the way, the Chicago police are great. They're great. Mm-hmm. But they're not being allowed to do their job. The greatest example is New York. What's happening in New York? Crime is up 358%. Shooting. Nobody's ever seen numbers like this. They're not allowed to do their job. And if they do their job, if they do it well and it gets a little bit rough, they're afraid that they're going to go to jail for the rest of their life. So we are very tough on it. We are dealing behind the scenes. We're saying you better get going. There's a point at which we're allowed to go in, and that point is rapidly being reached. But we were going into Seattle. We did go into, if you look at the Minneapolis event, you remember that event when they lined up and they just walked right through those streets like there was nothing, the National Guard. But there's a point at which we will have to do it because we just have to do it for the good of the country. And a lot of people say, don't do it. That's a local problem. That's good for you politically. I don't care if it's good for us or bad for us. We can't let this continue on. And I say to the police, you are loved, you are respected. This is a small group of crazy people. Just stay where you are. It's going to be turned around. It's going to be a turn. You're going to have, people better be very careful because you are going to have a backlash that's going to be incredible. People better be very careful what they wish for because the American people are not going to take it very much longer.
For almost 20 years, I've been searching for evidence of one of the greatest miracles of the entire Bible, the miraculous parting of the Red Sea.
Tim, the first question most people ask is, where's Mount Sinai? My first question as a geographer is, where was the sea that was parted and crossed?
So what do you think the crossing site, where would that be?
Well, for once, I'm going to follow the conventional argument here.
When I look at the Exodus story through the eyes of a scientist, then it contains a lot of observations which just make sense to modern science.
I think it is possible to demonstrate that it took place in close proximity to Egypt.
I know that some people would say, well, there were probably 5,000, maybe 20,000 Israelites.
This matter of large numbers is a very, very thorny issue.
There has to be enough Israelites in order to make Pharaoh and the rest of Egypt scared.
Whether the 10 plagues happened is a miracle. Whether the Red Sea parted is a miracle. Archaeology cannot prove or disprove a miracle.
Make the sea small, put it close to Egypt, all of a sudden it calls into question the biblical text itself.
And you cast their pursuers into the depths as a stone into mighty waters.
Where were these ancient lakes and what is now all desert?
And what sort of people could stand the strength of the wind that would part that depth of water? Nobody could stand and walk that land bridge in that sort of wind. It would be impossible.
Why is it important to think about these things?
At the end of the day, we're really talking about a miraculous event of unprecedented proportion, of God's miraculous saving power.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Mr. Barr, on June 1st, there were protests against the murder of George Floyd and police brutality in Lafayette Park. Let us not be distracted by you or my GOP colleagues as to what these powerful and massive protests were actually about. They were about the persistent killing of Black bodies by law enforcement. And finally...
Did you hear that? It's about the, quote, persistent killing of Black bodies by law enforcement. The persistent killing of Black bodies by law enforcement. Even Mark Lamont Hill never saw a race card he couldn't bend over and pick up. Even conceded under questioning with Candace Owens that the data do not show that the police are killing Black bodies because they're Black bodies.
Now, when you get to death, when you get to police shootings, the most accurate and recent data from the studies that are out don't suggest a racial disparity. Right?
Oh, don't suggest a racial disparity. So this whole hearing, and routinely during the hearings, and I was watching it sporadically, one of these Democrats would make an assertion like the one Jay Paul just did, and nobody said anything, not even Barr. What is your data for your assertion that there is a, quote, persistent killing? What an insult to the nearly 800,000 law enforcement officers in our nation. What an insult. And just say it so calmly, so routinely. So what's really the goal here?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
This mail-in ballot idea is catastrophic. Here's what the president said.
I don't want to delay. I want to have the election. But I also don't want to have to wait for 3 months and then find out that the ballots are all missing and the election doesn't mean anything.
Is that not a legitimate concern? Here's Steve on the Mike Gallagher Show in the ReliefFactor.com studios. Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks.
My thought on it is I'm all for the mail-in ballot.
Yes, my friends, Dennis Prager here with you, and I want to announce it's always a happy moment for me. And the reason is I get to talk to more people and hopefully reach them with good ideas and good values and love of country and love of goodness and taking seriously the preservation of Western civilization and all that good stuff and happiness. So I'd like to welcome Twin Valleys Talk Network in Milton and Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. That's right. That's how we feel. By the way, all these people cheering are wearing masks. And they're all 200 feet from each other. WMLP 1380 AM, 94.5 FM. And I looked it up, and I know that area, and my son lives about 2 hours from there. So maybe I'll get to visit. And Williamsport, Pennsylvania, WWPA 1340 AM, 101.7 FM, and WILQ HD3. Yes. I wonder, is that Amish area? Is that I'm sorry? No, not where we record the report. He's not well today. I have no... It's Mennonite territory. Anyway, Pennsylvania is an amazing state on many grounds, and I know it much better now since my son has been living there for 4 years. Anyway, thank you. It's great to be with you. I have a story for you that will touch you. So you may be aware that on the NBA team, the Orlando Magic, there was one player who stood for the national anthem. The entire team didn't stand. Entire team. That's common now. The WNBA, which is a disgrace, they run out when the national anthem begins. It's a disgrace. Ingrate. Left and ingrate are synonymous. So listen to this story. You don't even know it, Mr. Producer, and you will find it very touching. It turns out that this is from the Daily Wire, it turns out that bucking woke trends may be good for business because jersey sales for Orlando Magic player Jonathan Isaac have been surging since he decided to stand alone for the national anthem last Friday, becoming the first NBA player to do so amid the current spate of Black Lives Matter activism. Fox News reports 2 days after the Magic's game on Friday, Isaac's jersey sales surged on the NBA store. As of Sunday, Isaac's jersey is the second best seller on the league's website, behind only Los Angeles Lakers superstar LeBron James. Wait a minute. First of all, wait. Do you understand the morons we're producing in journalism schools? This is a white woman, I presume, asking a black man, do you think Black Lives Matter? Now, why would she ask such a question? Do you understand? Leftism makes you a fool. This is as good an example as I have ever provided. Is there any black human being who doesn't think Black Lives Matter? That means they don't think their life matters. Is that astonishing? Not wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt raises the question of whether you believe Black Lives Matter. I don't want to say the woman's name. She's a moron. It hurts me to say that a human being is a moron. But that's what they produce in journalism schools. You get a degree in being a fool. Does he? He has an answer, right? Go ahead.
Absolutely. I believe that Black Lives Matter.
Why doesn't he say, forgive me, why didn't he say, are you kidding? Wouldn't that be that would be the best? Wait a minute. Did you happen to notice that I'm black, or are you colorblind? Well, you can't be colorblind because you're on the left, which is against being colorblind. So you must have noticed I'm black. Now, do you think I think my life matters? Or my mother's life matters? Or my brother's life matters? They're black too. Idiot. Why are you interviewing me? You're an idiot. Go ahead.
A lot went into my decision, and part of it is, first off, is my thought that, kneeling or wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt don't go hand in hand with supporting Black lives. And so I felt like, just me personally, and what it is that I believe in, standing on the stance that I do believe that Black Lives Matter, but I just felt like it was a decision that I had to make, and I didn't feel like putting that shirt on and kneeling went hand in hand with supporting Black lives, or that it made me support Black lives or not. I believe that for myself, my life has been supported through the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that everyone is made in the image of God, and that we all fall short of God's glory, and that each and every one of us, each and every day, do things that we shouldn't do. We say things that we shouldn't say. We hate and we dislike people that we shouldn't hate and dislike. And sometimes it gets into a point where we point fingers about whose evil is worse. And sometimes that comes down to simply whose evil is most visible.
My God. But Jay, religion doesn't matter, right? Guy's he's not a hater. He believes that we're all created in God's image. If you say that, that's considered racist. That's right. Ask next time you have a meeting at your business, ask them, is the concept that all human beings are created in God's image, is that now considered racist? You know what I should do? I should prepare a series of questions to ask these fools who run these seminars, these destructive fools. They're not just fools, they're destructive questions. Because they're automatons. They're all automatons. They have a script in their brain. They get paid well to recite a script. They might believe it, they may not believe it. It doesn't matter to me if they believe what they say. It's irrelevant. If you believe your lie or you don't believe your lie, it doesn't matter. But I'd like to ask them, do you believe that all people are created in God's image is a racist statement? Do you believe that there's only one race, the human race, is a racist statement? And then allow people, some will not be persuaded by you, but some people will think, of course that's not racist. It's a beautiful concept. God, I wanted to buy a jersey with this guy's name, Jonathan Isaac, on it. I don't know if they, yeah, of course they would make it in my size. Yeah, I know he got an injury in the game. It's very sad. Yep, that's what he said. But that's the question of the year. Asking a black man, do you believe Black Lives Matter? And she's keeping her job. Whoever hired her is proud of her. Why do you think she asked the question? Isn't it worthy of analysis? Does she believe that if you don't support capital B, capital L, capital M, Black Lives Matter, you don't believe that Black Lives Matter? See, she's so ignorant of history. It's like the communists with their, the Workers' Party. So if you don't support the Workers' Party, do you support workers? That's the way it works. They commandeer language. All right. That was very important. Minneapolis police informed residents of the city's embattled 3rd Precinct to prepare for the giving up of their personal belongings to potential robbers and advised them to do as criminals say for their own safety. Back in a moment.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Hey there, folks. Welcome to the program. I get to talk to Pastor John MacArthur, and why shouldn't you listen in? That's what it's all about. It's the Eric Metaxas Show. I have him as my guest for the rest of the hour. Pastor MacArthur, welcome to the program. Just wonderful finally to get you here.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
I want to talk to you about opening up your church in defiance of your governor's edict. What is your thinking behind doing this and some of the details?
First of all, we have a First Amendment that protects us from any intrusion by any government official or agency in our worship. The essence of our worship is being together in the church. So the only reason that we wouldn't do that would be if there were some pestilence that were literally killing people. That's been the narrative, but in the state of California, there are 40 million people and 8,500 who died with COVID, not necessarily of COVID. So that's 0.002. So there was no medical reason to shut down churches. The churches are the essence of the spiritual life of the community, the society. And for Christian people, it is their raison d'etre. It's their we live and move and have our being place. And when you shut that down, isolate them, cause them to fear and be afraid they're going to die, if they're smart, they pretty soon don't believe that narrative anymore. So what happened was I was doing live stream, people started showing up, and then the next Sunday more showed up, and the next Sunday more. They didn't buy the narrative that they were threatening somebody's life if they went to church.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Jim Comey leaks his memos with the express purpose of getting a special counsel appointed to investigate something they already know is not true. And that's exactly what happened. We get 2 years, 19 lawyers, 40 agents, 500 witnesses, 2,800 subpoenas, and a $30 million cost to the taxpayer, and they come back with nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so all they got left is to attack the Attorney General, who had the courage to state the truth right from the get-go. The first time he testifies after he's confirmed. You guys attack him every day, every week, and now you filed articles of impeachment against him. It's ridiculous. He had the courage.
Now, Bill Barr, Jim Jordan took the hide off of the Democrats, but Bill Barr said this, cut number 24.
Why do you think these autonomous zones in Democrat-led cities are dangerous to America?
Well, starting with they're dangerous because they are purporting to keep on the outside duly constituted authority of the government. They're also, to me, outrageous because the people who are living now under this autonomous zone haven't selected the government. They've selected the duly authorized government of the city and the state. So it's quite an outrage that people would use force to take over an area. What makes me concerned for the country is this is the first time in my memory that the leaders of one of our great two political parties, the Democratic Party, are not coming out and condemning mob violence and the attack on federal courts.
That is absolutely true, because the Democrats have lost their mind. You vote for them at your peril.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Lori Lightfoot
This show is now available on live video streaming on Town Hall TV, as well as our website. If you want to watch the show.
The coronavirus has been predictable. It's not been a smooth ride for mortgage rates. Andrew and Todd are here to help you manage market volatility and help you into a better financial situation. Many major banks and lenders are pushing back on purchase loans and suspending refi applications entirely, but not Andrew and Todd at Sierra Pacific Mortgage. They are clocked in and working remotely, ready to advise you on what's best for your situation. The decline in rates is fueling a boom in refinancing. If you're considering a refi, new purchase, cash out refi, even reverse mortgage, don't wait. Go to andrewandtodd.com, andrewandtodd.com. Let them manage you and navigate you in these very difficult times. Andrew and Todd, 888-888-1172, 888-888-1172, andrewandtodd.com. So they have announced in Minneapolis, do as they say. Robberies and carjackings have increased in our precinct. The email begins. This is from the Minneapolis police. Cell phones, purses, and vehicles are being targeted. Some victims have been maced, dragged, assaulted, and some threatened with a gun. Most of these crimes have occurred north of 42nd Street East. 100 robberies and 20 carjackings have been reported to 3rd Precinct Police in July alone. Downtown and southwest Minneapolis have seen an increase as well. We want those who live and work here to be safe. The email comes weeks after the Minneapolis City Council took steps to defund the city's police department in exchange for, quote, a transformative new model for cultivating safety. That's what we need, a transformative new model. The left rejects the idea that police are necessary. They're all fools. Every leftist is a fool. They're arrogant beyond description because they believe that what preceded them was just all wrong. They will reinvent everything and make the new world in the image of their utopian scheme. We won't need police. We will expand government even though human nature stinks. We will expand government to give people, flawed humans, even more power. I told you, the ultimate questions are God and human nature. You believe human nature is basically good, then you will trust people with immense power. The founders, on a wisdom level of 1 to 100, were 99. The left on the wisdom level is 1. And they of course, have contempt for the founders. Oh, give people more and more power to control other human beings. I'm still stunned that people are not going to work. Why can't people sit in a restaurant if they want? Why can't they sit on an airplane? You take your mask off to eat in an airplane. Why can't you take your mask off to eat in a restaurant? You're far more distant from people in a restaurant than you are from people in an airplane. Why are we allowed to fly but not go to a restaurant? If you have a rational answer to that, I will send you a cigar. I will get your name and address, send you a really good, expensive cigar. Tell me one rational reason you can fly on a plane, but you can't go to a restaurant. Can you think of any? 2 rational, bright people in this room. The irrational edicts of the Newsoms and the Garcettis and the other Democrats, the irrationality is of it, the destructiveness. I believe in my heart of hearts that Newsom doesn't give a damn about people who go out of business. I truly believe that. Yes, that's right. If masks work, why is there that's right. Why can't you have your nails done? That is correct. Yes, especially toenails. She's in another time zone when she does your feet. Because they don't give a damn about the little man. The man or woman running a nail salon. They don't give a damn about them. In fact, they believe it. They know on some conscious level that people who own their own businesses probably vote Republican. They want to keep Walmart in business. The Democrats are the party of big business. That's why big business is all left. Why does big business always take a left-wing position? Because big business is on the left. They're in cahoots. You can go into Walmart, but you can't go into Fred's Bakery. Screw Fred. That Americans are not angry about this draconian, anti-rational policy, that's as disturbing to me as the policy itself. I'm angry on your behalf if you own a restaurant or a nail salon. I have my hair cut. It's like going to it's as close as I could imagine what a speakeasy was like during Prohibition. Say a code, the drapes are down, the door is locked. What do you have to say? What is it? Swordfish? Is that the Marx Brothers famous code word? Swordfish? Not the America that I grew up in, to say the least. Okie dokie. Stephen in St. Louis. Hello.
Hey, Dennis. Thanks for taking my call. Appreciate it. How are you today, sir?
Well, thank you for calling.
I'm doing well also. You gotta get more people watching on the YouTube Live, by the way, you guys.
Okay, that's good. We'll be, we're going to take Karam in Cleveland. Hello, Karam. Okay. That didn't work. And Mike in St. Paul, Minnesota. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Dennis. Pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.
Hey, I thought you might be interested to know that the state of Minnesota is trying to have the miles of basically riot, burned and destroyed area declared some kind of a business disaster area with the federal government to try to get money freed up, small loans, etc.
Yeah, hold on. I want to talk to you about that.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
I watched that hearing yesterday, the House Judiciary Committee. I played a lot of it on the show 2 days ago. I've never been more embarrassed to be an American. I mean, if you were a foreign citizen watching that, you'd say, we're out of our mind. What did you make of that?
It was cringeworthy. And I say this as a former committee chairman. I chaired a committee in the House for 2 terms. Look, the chairman of a committee can operate the committee in a way, and should, that advances his own policy and advances within limits the partisan interests of his party, okay? But you do that in the subject matter of the hearings that you choose, the witnesses that you pick, and the timing of the hearings. Once the hearing starts, you have to act a little bit more like a judge. And the 2 things that you have to do, you have to let the witnesses answer questions when they're asked. If the member wants to take the whole 5 minutes and make a statement, they can do it. But if they ask a question, the witness gets to answer it. And number 2, when a witness is attacked personally, okay, you have to give them an opportunity to respond. You simply do. And they didn't. And it turned the whole hearing into a circus and made the Democrats look terrible and made Jerry Nadler look worse. And he was a class.
Let me ask you about rule number 3. This is basic human decency. When someone asks for a break, they usually need to use the restroom. And Nadler wouldn't let the Attorney General of the United States, of course, the witness wants a break. Don't you give them a break?
Absolutely, and that's exactly the reason. The man had sat there all day long, okay? None of us are spring chickens anymore, He needed to use the restroom. So
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
We should not stand for discrimination, bigotry, hate. No way should 4 police officers be involved in a death of a man like George Floyd. So I ask you this question with great caution. Do you know what the average NBA basketball player makes? I asked my operations manager, Eric Hansen, who follows the NBA. I don't really pay much attention to the NBA. He says even kind of average NBA players make many millions a year. Many millions a year. I think there's a whole bunch of young black kids, white kids, kids of all ethnicities who would just give anything to be good enough to have a career in the NBA. It's a very elite group. And these players decided to intentionally disrespect the national anthem, the flag, and the United States of America because they are demanding equality. And at this point, I don't know what anybody does about it except vote. I don't know how else you respond. And of course, we can all talk about you won't watch the NBA, and incidentally, ratings are going to plummet, I would think, for the NBA. I have to believe a lot of Americans are disgusted by this.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Dear members of the entertainment community.
Entertainment community.
Entertainment community. We know that you're more famous than any of us.
Well, most of us.
I'm mad.
Distressed. Alarmed.
Infuriated.
It's your job to be creative.
Creative. Creative.
And yet, how many...
All right, everybody, Dennis Prager here, and I just want to say to Mike in St. Paul, I got to go to my guest, but your point is so important. The Democrats in cities allow the city to be destroyed and then ask the federal government, that is people in Idaho, to pay for the cleaning up of the damage done that they allowed. All right, I want to go to my guest, to whom I am very grateful for his courage and his scientific approach to the matter of hydroxychloroquine. Harvey Risch, professor of epidemiology at the Yale School of Public Health. Welcome to the Dennis Prager Show.
It's great to be here and talk with you.
It probably is. After CNN, I must be a relief.
Well, the science stands for itself. I'm the vehicle. I'm, the interpreter, but the science is really what matters.
Yes, exactly. The people who say follow the science seem to be following other things. Let me ask you, before we get into the actual issue, are you at all surprised by the blowback?
No, I expected it. I expected that there would be a lot of forces pushing back on what I've observed about the studies that I know about. But, society works this way, I guess.
Yes, it does. Have you gotten any support at Yale?
Yes, my dean put a note on our school's website saying that our School of Public Health, like Yale in general, supports diverse viewpoints of its faculty members and students, for that matter, and so on. And it's one of the things that I love about Yale, and that's why I value being a Yale faculty member, that we do express what we think best, to the best of our abilities, and we have the freedom to do that.
To summarize, my dear listeners, Dr. Risch, an epidemiologist, published a piece in Newsweek last week or 2 weeks ago, and he made the case for hydroxychloroquine in the early stages, which is what we have been talking about from the beginning, and cited studies, et cetera, et cetera. The article is up at DennisPrager.com. It has been up for a while. I don't remember, do you, in your advocacy, always mention zinc?
I try to, but I'm very empirical. I go where the evidence is, and the evidence for zinc is good, but there's not as much evidence for it as there is for use of hydroxychloroquine with what I'll call companion medications, of which zinc is one. So I start top down and say the evidence for hydroxychloroquine with companion medications is very strong when used early in high-risk outpatients. That's the scenario. And looking at hospitalization or mortality as the outcome of importance. And so that evidence is very strong. If you want to start addressing components of that, whether azithromycin matters or doxycycline as an antibiotic or steroids or zinc is an important contribution, but it has different evidence than the totality of the evidence for hydroxychloroquine.
So there's mixed evidence on the zinc part, but there's compelling evidence on the hydroxychloroquine, is what you're saying.
Well, not exactly. I don't think it's mixed. I think the evidence for zinc is positive. I just don't think there's as much evidence for it. That's all. We haven't studied
because it hasn't been used as much. I never understand the studies, whether it's the ones removed from Lancet and New England Journal of Medicine, for example. None of them use zinc, so it doesn't seem to me to be a valid study.
I think that the issue is a little subtle, that, as we know, Dr. Zelenko has used zinc in his protocol and gotten amazing, stupendous results in saving the lives of 800-plus people. And the reason for this is that in young people who more or less don't need to be treated, so these are what we will call low-risk people, they more or less have zinc in them anyway, and they're not zinc deficient. But in older people or people with chronic conditions, those are the people who may be more zinc depleted and who need the zinc supplementation in order for the hydroxychloroquine to get the zinc into the cells where the virus is replicating. So in younger people, or in the middle of that range, hydroxychloroquine can work on its own.
Because you have zinc already. I get it. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's really excellent. All right, we're going to continue. It's always a joy to speak to people who have courage. That's the rarest of all the good human traits, as I have said to you all of my broadcast career. Dr. Harvey Risch is a professor of epidemiology at Yale. This you do not need to be a doctor for, and that is to know you don't need studies on this one, and that is the extraordinary relief factor. ReliefFactor.com will show you how it has affected vast numbers of people. It's worth watching. It's watching and reading. ReliefFactor.com. I use it. The Living Martyr uses it. I never wanted to advertise a painkiller. But then my wife told me years ago she had been using it, and she never told me. It's probably the only secret she's ever kept from me. Or maybe I don't know. I'm going to ask her if there are any other secrets. And it's helped her knees tremendously. It's a fantastic product. Try it for 3 weeks. 800-500-8384 for just $19.95.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
This is CNN's Cuomo, Fredo, as he doesn't like to be called, talking about how to politicize a death. Eric, video cut 2.
Herman Cain. Yes, he supported the president. The president says he was a good friend of his. We wish his family well, and we wish that he rest in peace. And I wish that this president have no peace until he thinks about what he's exposing people to. He didn't even mention that Mr. Cain was at his rally among the maskless masses right before he was diagnosed. Now, maybe he didn't get it there. Sure as hell didn't help.
But you, leaving your house, going out for dinner when you had the coronavirus and were under quarantine, that's fine, right? Because you're not a rube. You're not a deplorable. You're not a participant at a Trump rally. You're special, aren't you, Cuomo? You're a millionaire news personality, member of the elite. You can lie to your viewers about being sequestered at home, when in fact, it's nothing of the sort. You can joke with your brother, the governor, and hold up giant prop Q-tips. How funny you are! Because that's serious journalism.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
So you know the reason why we're in this situation is because of China. Where is the administration on encouraging American companies who are operating and manufacturing in China, especially PPE? How are you enticing them to come back to the United States to manufacture those types of goods? Because a number of these boxes you buy at the store for masks and such say made in China.
But we're also making them here now. We have plants making all over, like Honeywell and companies that you wouldn't think of for making this kind of stuff. They're making the certain types of masks, especially the doctors, for what the doctors need in the hospital, the 95s. They are doing, I went up to one of the factories in Maine, and it's incredible, one of the plants, and it's incredible what
The best minds teaching their best ideas in 5 entertaining minutes. That's what happens at Prager University every week. Go to prageruniversity.com and donate today. All right, everybody. Dennis Prager here. And yes, PragerU, this is fundraising month, August, because my birthday's the beginning of the month. So we just chose it on that basis. We're making a very big difference with 1 billion views a year. And we'd have more. Every dollar ultimately means another view. PragerU.com, 833-PragerU. A Yale epidemiologist, professor of epidemiology there, Harvey Risch, is my guest. He had an article in Newsweek, which was in favor of hydroxychloroquine. I want to read to you some of the critiques so that I will be able to defend what you said better. I know you can, but now I want to know how. So I'm sure you saw the critique in MedPage today. What is MedPage today? Do you know?
MedPage is an article that purports to review scientific evidence pertaining to medicine, and I can't speak to the veracity of what it covers.
That's fine. So this is what they write. Risch, that's you, of course, points readers to his review. He is the only author, published in late May in the American Journal of Epidemiology, that cites 5 studies in support of hydroxychloroquine, particularly when used early in COVID-19. None are randomized and controlled trials. What is your answer to that?
Well, it's a fictitious standard, as it turns out. The FDA has guidelines for what it takes to approve medications. And there's a whole long history that the FDA has approved lots of medications, and many medications have come into widespread use without randomized controlled trials. For example, last Friday, the FDA approved the cancer medication without a randomized controlled trial. It's their standard policy to evaluate evidence, but not all of that evidence needs to be randomized controlled trials. And in fact, on the FDA's internal documents for what it calls emergency use authorization, EUA, it lists the criteria that have to be met in order for approval. And the standard for approval in that document is may provide evidence. It nowhere says randomized controlled trial evidence. It's not even a strong statement of good evidence. It says may provide evidence. That's sufficient for the FDA to approve hydroxychloroquine and other medications on an emergency use authorization basis, which is what is needed now.
So let me explain to my listeners, randomized, as I understand it, means that people do not know if they are taking the experimental drug, as it were, or not. Is that correct?
Well, that's blinded. If a study is blinded, then the people don't know.
So what does randomized mean?
Randomized is that a random generator assigns either the treatment group or the non-treatment group to each subject. And in theory, and I say this very strongly, in theory, that is supposed to remove all possible biases as to reasons why people would or wouldn't take the medication. But it turns out that people believe in randomization when they shouldn't, because the amount of randomization it takes, the amount of subjects it takes, is gigantic, in the tens of thousands, in order to make the treatment group and the non-treatment group exactly balanced, or close enough to exactly balanced. And there's other issues about randomized control trials in the real world that the previous director of the Centers for Disease Control, Tom Frieden, wrote about in the New England Journal in 2017, where he discusses all of the reasons and the kinds of studies that go into medical reasoning. Randomized control trials are one part, but it is a very naive and restricted viewpoint to say that they are the only kind of study that provide evidence of benefit.
I'm sure you're familiar with the French health minister, the former French health minister, who has who met with the editors of the New England Journal of Medicine and The Lancet, the two most prestigious medical journals in the world, to the best of my knowledge, and both retracted their anti-hydroxychloroquine studies because they turned out to be unscientific. His claim is that a big part of the reason, in fact the biggest, is pressure by Gilead, the pharmaceutical company, to push remdesivir, which is very, very expensive, versus hydroxychloroquine. Do you believe that to be true?
I can't speak to Gilead specifically, but I believe there are major big pharma pressures on those journals and a lot of other places in medicine today. And I say this because Dr. Angel and Dr. Horton from the New England Journal and Lancet, respectively, have publicly complained about the pressure they feel from the drug companies who provide a lot of their income through advertising to what they call, their words are, to launder drug company studies through those journals. And one sees this in very medically politically driven opinion essays in those journals, where you look and you'll see that all the authors get all or most of their research funding, if not their personal salaries, from drug companies. And you see these papers that are strange opinions that are very self-serving. And so it's very clear that what they were complaining about is present in what comes out through these journals, and maybe other journals as well.
In this supposed refutation of your piece in Newsweek on MedPage, they write that one of the studies that you cite is, and they quote, one is the heavily publicized and now discredited French study by Didier Raoult, MD, and colleagues in March that sparked initial hopes and so on. Has it been discredited?
It has not been discredited. It has some value. It's not as probative as other studies, larger studies with more carefully done conditions and methods. But that study was done quick and dirty in order to see where there's motivation to do larger studies. in fact, in my updated review of all the studies, of which there's now a dozen or more, that was also published as a response letter in the American Journal of Epidemiology a few weeks ago, discussed these 12 studies, and that one is only a small part and really not even a necessary part whatsoever. The Marseille group has
but it is worth
study.
noting he is the most prestigious epidemiologist in France.
Yes, and controversial. And
clearly. Back with Dr. Risch of Yale in a moment.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Jim Comey leaks his memos with the express purpose of getting a special counsel appointed to investigate something they already know is not true. And that's exactly what happened. We get 2 years, 19 lawyers, 40 agents, 500 witnesses, 2,800 subpoenas, and a $30 million cost to the taxpayer, and they come back with nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so all they got left is to attack the Attorney General, who had the courage to state the truth right from the get-go, the first time he testifies after he's confirmed. And you guys attack him every day, every week, and now you filed articles of impeachment against him. It's ridiculous. He had the courage.
Now, Bill Barr, Jim Jordan took the hide off of the Democrats, but Bill Barr said this, cut number 24.
Why do you think these autonomous zones in Democrat-led cities are dangerous to America?
Well, starting with they're dangerous because they are purporting to keep on the outside duly constituted authority of the government. They're also, to me, outrageous because the people who are living now under this autonomous zone haven't selected the government. They've selected the duly authorized government of the city and the state. So it's quite an outrage that people would use force to take over an area. What makes me concerned for the country is this is the first time in my memory that the leaders of one of our great two political parties, the Democratic Party, are not coming out and condemning mob violence and the attack on federal courts.
That is absolutely true, because the Democrats have lost their mind. You vote for them at your peril.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Lori Lightfoot is obviously pandering to the mob, and the mob is winning. Chicago's last remaining statue of Christopher Columbus has been removed. According to the Chicago Sun-Times, for several days, the statue had avoided the fate of two others, one in Little Italy, the other in Grant Park, that were removed in the middle of the night after protests. But this morning, Lori Lightfoot's office confirmed the removal of the far south side statue as well. This was a bronze figure. It was on a small triangular concrete pedestrian island surrounded by South Chicago Avenue, Exchange Avenue, and 92nd Street in the South Chicago neighborhood. The protesters hadn't gone after this statue for some reason, unlike the other two statues. But the mayor was worried that the protesters would injure themselves in trying to topple.
All right, everybody. Just got a couple of minutes here. Wish I had more time with Dr. Harvey Risch, epidemiologist at Yale. Would you say that a fair number of people have died unnecessarily because of the opposition to hydroxychloroquine?
I'd say that because we were blocked from using it widespread in the United States through the present point, probably at least 100,000 people have died because of that inability.
I'm silent so that my listeners can absorb what you just said. I believe that too. It is the biggest scandal of my lifetime.
I agree.
Wow. So, Can you think of any reason why doctors or epidemiologists would oppose hydroxychloroquine?
I think there's been a large mismanagement, misinformation campaign, misdirection campaign coming from Dr. Fauci. I've said this in an interview that's on the internet, that for whatever his reasons, he has blurred all the distinctions about the studies that have been done and the studies that need to be done, in which patients at what stage of illness, and blurring those distinctions just totally confuses and misrepresents what the data are for use in early stage high-risk outpatients, which is the only one that we're talking about for usage of hydroxychloroquine. And I can't speak to his motivations, but I, again, think it's similar to what the journal editors were saying, that they feel that competition, the drug companies feel that competition with an inexpensive and very effective medication will reduce the salability of their newly developed products.
He has interest in drug companies of which you're aware, or
I have no information about
I understand
what his personal interests are.
I don't know what's motivating him, to be honest. I have no idea. But I hate to say it, but he's responsible in large measure for a lot of death.
Well, I think it's not just him. I think the FDA is the one who has to be called out on this. I think they have put up the roadblock. They put a black letter warning on their website saying that outpatients should not take it because of
what motivated them?
I think they are protecting the space available for drug companies to use the emergency use authorization to get a different drug approved by the drug companies.
Well, on behalf of the American people, on behalf of truth, I want to thank you, Dr. Harvey Risch.
Great to talk to you. Thank you.
Right. There's blood on the FDA's hands and on Dr. Fauci's hands and all the governors who banned it. A lot of blood in an unprecedented number in the United States of America.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Mr. Barr, on June 1st, there were protests against the murder of George Floyd and police brutality in Lafayette Park. Let us not be distracted by you or my GOP colleagues as to what these powerful and massive protests were actually about. They were about the persistent killing of black bodies by law enforcement. And finally...
Did you hear that? It's about the, quote, persistent killing of black bodies by law enforcement. The persistent killing of black bodies by law enforcement. Even Mark Lamont Hill never saw a race card he couldn't bend over and pick up. Even conceded under questioning with Candace Owens that the data do not show that the police are killing black bodies because they're black bodies.
Now, when you get to death, when you get to police shootings, the most accurate and recent data from the studies that are out don't suggest a racial disparity. Right?
Oh, don't suggest a racial disparity. So this whole hearing, and routinely during the hearings, and I was watching it sporadically, one of these Democrats would make an assertion like the one Jay Paul just did, and nobody said anything, not even Barr. What is your data for your assertion that there is a, quote, persistent killing? What an insult to the nearly 800,000 law enforcement officers in our nation. What an insult. And just say it so calmly, so routinely. So what's really the goal here?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
This mail-in ballot idea is catastrophic. Here's what the president said.
I don't want to delay. I want to have the election. But I also don't want to have to wait for 3 months and then find out that the ballots are all missing and the election doesn't mean anything.
Is that not a legitimate concern? Here's Steve on the Mike Gallagher Show in the ReliefFactor.com studios. Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks.
My thought on it is I'm all for the mail-in ballots, but count every one and verify every single one. And Trump stays in office until you get that done. and when you have Biden up by 2% and you identify more than 2% fraud in a state, they're disqualified.
Yeah, but yeah,
So
and of
when
course,
you get
and if Trump,
when you get
and if-
8% in California fraud, California's out.
yeah. Listen, I'd make you the voting commissioner, but it isn't going to happen. Ain't going to go that way. They're going to count the ballots. They're going to say, oh, Joe Biden has won in a landslide. We've counted the votes. Trust us. Just like the Postal Service told me this morning. If you'd like us to call you back, we'll call you back, and you won't lose your place in line. When when the customer's on the line, press 1. Press 1. It was another 19, 20 minutes of music waiting for them. The post office is a disaster right now.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm a board-certified emergency physician for 20 years. In fact, until seems like 5 minutes ago, I was considered a hero, and people would be clapping and glad that I was doing what I was doing. And then the video came out, and I was summarily fired for appearing in what was told to me is an embarrassing video.
Dr. Simone Gold, one of the colleagues of Dr. Dan Erickson, who was with us for the whole first hour. Doctors on the front line who held that press conference this week here in Washington, D.C., that was met with a viral response when Breitbart posted the video of these medical professionals talking about the coronavirus, hydroxychloroquine, and everything that I guess you're not supposed to know. That was almost instantly taken down and then blocked. And now we hear that Dr. Gold, for appearing and simply making statements of fact, has lost her job. If you missed our hour with Dr. Dan Erickson, the last time he was on, it garnered our most popular video ever, 820,000 views. Go to YouTube and watch that and our new interview. Look for me, Sebastian Gorka, America First. Subscribe, hit the notifications bell twice, and watch that interview. We've reached out, she's responded, and we will be joined by Dr. Simone Gold next week to find out more about what it means to speak the truth in this nation.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
People haven't really worked out what does it mean to be a Christian in a culture that is telling you to do things perhaps that you disagree with. At what point do you cross that line?
God has put restraints in the world because sin is in every human heart. And when millions of sinners collide with each other, the potential for complete disruption of any kind of normal life is there. So God restrains with the conscience and the law that he wrote in the human heart. That's individual restraint. In the family, with the discipline of a mother and particularly a father. In the society, with the police who bear the sword. That's the ultimate weapon, the threat of death, to protect those who do good and punish those who do evil. And then finally, the influence of the church. So what we've seen in our society is the destruction of the human conscience, wiping out the law of God, retraining people's brains with homosexuality, transgender, immorality, you name it, so that they don't know what the law of God is. Their conscience doesn't know how to function. And if it does, they're told to silence their conscience because they shouldn't feel guilty. Then crush the family, wipe out the family, destroy fathers, and go after the police, defund the police, and now you've eliminated the personal restraint, the family restraint, the societal restraint, and then go after the church and shut the church down.
Yes, indeed, my friends. Dennis Prager here with the Ultimate Issues Hour, right? So we need a new beginning. All right, we'll give you the Ultimate Issues beginning because it's very important. Got to set the stage properly. We'll send Shauna to the punishment room afterwards.
Okay. Okay. You are going to learn to be more professional. That's what you're going to do. Oh, no. Is the question.
Missed it by that much.
Yes, indeed. It's painful to me to send Shauna to the punishment room. But we have standards at this show. About 5% of my listeners do not like the punishment room. I've gotten feedback to that issue. And I want you to know that it is done because it is my way of saying that standards are everything. Without standards, society collapses. A radio show collapses. Everything collapses. There is a war against standards taking place at this very time. It's called the war against objectivity. No SATs. Lower the score needed for the bar exam. Admit people based on race, gender, class, not on the basis of excellence. Everybody will suffer when standards are obliterated. That's why we have the punishment room. Hi, everybody. This is the Ultimate Issues Hour, Tuesdays. This is exactly what you didn't get in college or high school or elementary school. There was no Ultimate Issues Hour in all of most Americans' education. That's why there's so little wisdom in America today. I could have called it the Wisdom Hour, but it would have sounded self-referential, so I didn't. It's the Ultimate Issues Hour, but it deals with the large questions. I'd like to bounce a theory off you today. I have hinted at it in the last week. And it's, if I'm right, it's very important. So here it goes. After World War I, Europe lost its faith in its two greatest faith objects. The God and religion is one, and their country, their nation, was the other. So a Brit in 1910 would have said with tremendous earnestness that he or she was committed to God and country. It's a common saying, God and country. God and country died as objects of faith after World War I in Europe. The staggering slaughter of the young men throughout Europe. I mean, just horrific. People went to die, basically, in World War I. And nobody really felt that much was accomplished with all this sacrifice. People went marching, assuming the war would be over the first Christmas. And all they did was send more people to die. Germany, France, England in particular. So, this shattered God and country. And what happened, except in England? What happened in Europe and Russia as a result of World War I? Russia was the most dramatic reaction to World War I, the Russian Revolution, Communist Revolution. So, what happened with the death of God and country, in particular, the death of God, at least the God of the Bible, we got Nazism, fascism, and communism. There is nobody, I don't care if you're an atheist, you cannot deny, you can deny that those are the inevitable results of the collapse of the Judeo-Christian value system, but you cannot deny that it happened. I'm not saying it's inevitable, but something has to replace something. And something did. Those somethings in Europe were communism, fascism, and Nazism. In the United States, that did not happen. It did not happen in any of the English-speaking countries. And to jump ahead for a moment, those are the countries with the most radical left transformation of the society. England, Canada, United States, Australia. It's not New Zealand. It's not a coincidence. Those countries were spared Bolshevism, communism, Nazism, fascism. But there's a reason. Except for England. But in the United States, which is the most important country in this regard, or in any regard, in terms of the world, in the United States, the Judeo-Christian tradition and country remained values through the end of World War II. Unlike European countries, Americans did not suffer a loss of belief after World War I. If anything, they were even more committed to America and to religion. There was a religious revival, if you will. The words "under God" were inserted into the Pledge of Allegiance in the 1950s. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It was, until then, one nation with liberty and justice for all. I wonder how many schools say the Pledge of Allegiance today, just as a side matter here. And there was a tremendous belief in the nation. God Bless America was written. Well, when was God Bless America? In the 1940s? When did that get written? Take a look, would you? God Bless America. There was a tremendous, if you look at the movies from the 30s and 40s, it was such a patriotism. It's a massive love of this country. Oh, that early, 1918. Revised later in 1938. Wow. Did you know it was written that early? I'm shocked. It was written for World War I? Okay. Anyway, that's people saying it. I mean, saying it till recently. God Bless America. It's a very moving, powerful melody and words. So America was spared its end of faith in country and God until the end of World War II. Not because of World War II, but because of the radicalization of our universities, where the secular was assumed to be the true, and where leftism, which rejects nationalism, as well as religion, well, especially Christianity, reigned supreme. So now the question is, what will happen in America as it loses its faith in God and country? And that is the present danger, and why you should worry, or be concerned, or better, forget worrying. Fight. 1-8-PRAGER-776.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
This mail-in ballot idea is catastrophic. Here's what the president said.
I don't want to delay. I want to have the election. But I also don't want to have to wait for 3 months and then find out that the ballots are all missing and the election doesn't mean anything.
Is that not a legitimate concern? Here's Steve on the Mike Gallagher Show in the ReliefFactor.com studios. Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks.
My thought on it is I'm all for the mail-in ballots, but count every one and verify every single one. And Trump stays in office until you get that done. and when you have Biden up by 2% and you identify more than 2% fraud in a state, they're disqualified.
Yeah, but yeah,
So
and of
when
course,
you get
and if Trump,
when you get
and if-
8% in California fraud, California's out.
yeah, listen, I'd make you the voting commissioner, but it isn't going to happen. Ain't going to go that way. They're going to count the ballots. They're going to say, "Oh, Joe Biden has won in a landslide. We've counted the votes. Trust us." Just like the Postal Service told me this morning, if you'd like us to call you back, we'll call you back, and you won't lose your place in line. When when the customer's on the line, press 1. Press 1. It was another 19, 20 minutes of music waiting for them. The post office is a disaster right now.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm a board-certified emergency physician for 20 years. In fact, until seems like 5 minutes ago, I was considered a hero, and people would be clapping and glad that I was doing what I was doing. And then the video came out, and I was summarily fired for appearing in what was told to me is an embarrassing video.
Dr. Simone Gold, one of the colleagues of Dr. Dan Erickson, who was with us for the whole first hour. Doctors on the front line who held that press conference this week here in Washington, D.C., that was met with a viral response when Breitbart posted the video of these medical professionals talking about the coronavirus, hydroxychloroquine, and everything that I guess you're not supposed to know. That was almost instantly taken down and then blocked. And now we hear that Dr. Gold, for appearing and simply making statements of fact, has lost her job. If you missed our hour with Dr. Dan Erickson, the last time he was on, it garnered our most popular video ever, 820,000 views. Go to YouTube and watch that and our new interview. Look for me, Sebastian Gorka, America First. Subscribe, hit the notifications bell twice, and watch that interview. We've reached out, she's responded, and we will be joined by Dr. Simone Gold next week to find out more about what it means to speak the truth in this nation.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
People haven't really worked out what does it mean to be a Christian in a culture that is telling you to do things perhaps that you disagree with. At what point do you cross that line?
God has put restraints in the world because sin is in every human heart. And when millions of sinners collide with each other, the potential for complete disruption of any.
I want to remind you about Flatten the Fear. Really important website. The fear is ruining our country. We have panicked. We have allowed people to do ruinous, destructive, irredeemably destructive policies. You can fly in an airplane, take off your mask while eating, but you can't go to a restaurant and take off your mask and eat. So you'll be much further away from strangers than you are on an airplane. And there's just no reaction because people are told, oh, you'll die. Flatten the Fear is a website by doctors. It's doctors who contribute. And it's free, flattenthefear.com. I'm Dennis Prager. This is the Ultimate Issues Hour. Here's my theory. After World War I, Europe lost its belief in God and country. And the end of Judeo-Christian values there. And what you got in Europe was communism, fascism, and Nazism. Now, what you have in Europe is interesting. Europe has been sort of inoculated against fascism, Nazism, and communism since 100 million died there, or 50 million in Europe, total 100 million in World War II. I mean, vast numbers, obviously. The suffering, and that's deaths. Doesn't include the rape and the tortured and the starved almost to death. It's unbelievable, the suffering in Europe. So they've inoculated themselves against extremism. We have not inoculated ourselves against extremism because we have not experienced it yet. So what's going to happen in America with the death of belief in God, Judeo-Christian values, and country, which the left is obviously responsible for? What is going to happen? Well, the answer is some variation of Nazism, communism, or fascism. Why would the rule that prevailed in Europe not prevail in America? And the left is totalitarian in America. You may not think wrong, not just may not speak wrong. The cancel culture is totalitarian. Cancel culture is way too benign a term for what is actually happening. So, unless you think that America is governed for some reason, in some way, by different rules than other humans, and since Americans are just human like anyone else, it's inconceivable that we have different rules of life governing us. There is a very real chance that we will lapse into some American variation of communism. I don't see an American variation of Nazism, but some combination of fascism and communism, which the left is already embraced, not liberals. So that is the sort of the inevitability here that we are addressing, unless we fight it. All of my life, I have talked about the destructive nature of secularism, I knew all of my life that I was not the only voice, but a lonely voice in this matter, because secular conservatives are as convinced God and the Bible are as unnecessary as secular leftists are. It's a colossal mistake. Where are people going to get their values from? Reading wonderful conservative thinkers? Okay, 1-8 Prager 776 Ultimate Issues Hour 877-243-7776. All righty, and Mike in Houston, Texas. Hello.
Hey, Dennis.
Hi.
How are you today, sir?
Okay, thank you.
So glad to have you back on the air. Missed you last week, although Mark Davis was
Wait, I was only gone a day. Mark
That
Davis.
was the best thing for me to listen.
I'm sorry? Oh, it's the only day you listened? That's funny. It's funny to hear. It's glad to have you back when I was gone one day. But I'm glad you like Mark Davis. He's terrific. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have so much on my mind and so many things I'd love to ask you, but I think the best use of my short time on air would be to ask you why the skin from your face is trying to escape to the ground.
All right, so we continue here. And
no, can you just answer one?
That is Steve in Fullerton, California. Hi there.
Oh, hi, Dennis. I want to talk to you about how to fight this evil in the current crisis we're in. You hinted at it yesterday when you talked to Sean Hannity, what you just said in different words, that you had a sense of foreboding, very dark, morbid, and terrible, and a horrific crisis threatening the foundations of this country. And Lincoln felt this, too, during the middle of the Civil War. And by God's grace, we can implement the solution to that right now. And I'm asking you, and may I respectfully telling you that you are a key to implementing this solution. The solution is to turn to God. That's exactly what Lincoln did. He introduced, he passed the 1863 proclamation during the middle of the Civil War, and from that time the Union started winning. And what it did, that in that proclamation, he asked the country for a confession of their national sin. And we have a national sin of being unthankful and having exceeding contempt for the foundations of the country. That's the curse that we brought on ourselves. But the national sin is not appreciating the blessings the Almighty has blessed this country with, on which it is founded. Just laws, justice, law, government. And we have turned away from the values, as you have said. We have turned away from the...
Yep, you're right, my friend. Well, I'm doing all I can. Tell you one thing that I've done that I truly ask you to try out, and that is my Bible commentary to explain the greatest book. We'll understand why it gives you wisdom. Almost every verse is explained. It's called the Rational Bible. 2 volumes of the 5 are out. Next year, the 3rd of the 5 will be out. The Rational Bible. It will touch your life. We continue.
For almost 20 years, I've been searching for evidence of one of the greatest miracles of the entire Bible, the miraculous parting of the Red Sea.
Tim, the first question most people ask is, where's Mount Sinai? My first question as a geographer is, where was the sea that was parted and crossed?
So what do you think the crossing site, where would that be?
Well, for once, I'm going to follow the conventional argument here.
When I look at the Exodus story through the eyes of a scientist, then it contains a lot of observations which just make sense to modern science.
I think it is possible to demonstrate that it took place in close proximity to Egypt.
I know that some people would say, well, there were probably 5,000, maybe 20,000 Israelites.
This matter of large numbers is a very, very thorny issue.
There has to be enough Israelites in order to make Pharaoh and the rest of Egypt scared.
Whether the 10 plagues happened is a miracle. Whether the Red Sea parted is a miracle. Archaeology cannot prove or disprove a miracle.
Make the sea small, put it close to Egypt, all of a sudden it calls into question the biblical text itself.
And you cast their pursuers into the depths as a stone into mighty waters.
Where were these ancient lakes and what is now all desert?
And what sort of people could stand the strength of the wind that would part that depth of water? Nobody could stand and walk that land bridge in that sort of wind. It would be impossible.
Why is it important to think about these things?
At the end of the day, we're really talking about a miraculous event of unprecedented proportion, of God's miraculous saving power.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Mr. Barr, on June 1st, there were protests against the murder of George Floyd and police brutality in Lafayette Park. Let us not be distracted by you or my GOP colleagues as to what these powerful and massive protests were actually about. They were about the persistent killing of black bodies by law enforcement. And finally...
Did you hear that? It's about the, quote, persistent killing of black bodies by law enforcement. The persistent killing of black bodies by law enforcement. Even Mark Lamont Hill never saw a race card he couldn't bend over and pick up. Even conceded under questioning with Candace Owens that the data do not show that the police are killing black bodies because they're black bodies.
Now, when you get to death, when you get to police shootings, the most accurate and recent data from the studies that are out don't suggest a racial disparity. Right?
Oh, don't suggest a racial disparity. So this whole hearing, and routinely during the hearings, and I was watching it sporadically, one of these Democrats would make an assertion like the one Jay Paul just did, and nobody said anything, not even.
All right. Hey, everybody. Ultimate Issues Hour, third hour every Tuesday. And this is my analysis of the situation we are in. After World War I, Europe lost faith in Christianity and Judeo-Christian values and in their nations. God and country became silly terms. With the death of the Judeo-Christian tradition, or forget tradition, values, we got Nazism, fascism, and communism. A staggering number of deaths, the enslavement of peoples in horrific, unprecedented fashion. Europe has been sort of inoculated. Since World War II, it has not really flirted with Nazism, fascism, and communism. And what they have done is they've retreated from ideology to basically left light, leftism light. Just take care of me, pay my bills, don't demand that I work a lot, allow me to travel, go to cafes, and enjoy life, and then die. That is the European attitude. They have been inoculated against isms, generally speaking. However, the English-speaking countries, putting Britain aside for a moment, the English-speaking countries did not suffer the communism, Nazism, or fascism. Well, neither did Britain, for that matter. And they've not been inoculated. So the left in those countries is way more powerful than the left in France or the left, believe it or not. The left in France is very strong economically, but not socially. There is no transgendered movement in Europe that even approaches that of the United States. They do not allow biological men to race against biological women, for example, in young people's races. They do not have these vast marches of women like we do, protesting. They don't have a vibrant Me Too movement in Europe like we have in the United States, where men lose their entire careers because of a charge of harassment. They don't have that in Europe. They don't have the cancel culture in Europe. They do in England. England is one of the English-speaking countries that was not affected. They've, again, not inoculated, as I put it, against fascism as the rest of Europe was. So when the Judeo-Christian system collapses, you get a lot of bad things. America kept that system until after World War II. That's 1918 to 1945. It's a generation more than Europe did. But now we haven't. And now you can look at Minneapolis and other cities around the country, New York City, and you will see the effects of the collapse of the Judeo-Christian tradition. See it in the Democratic Party, taken over by people who loathe the society and the Judeo-Christian culture. That was Judeo-Christian values was one of the things listed as white supremacist in the African American Museum in Washington. Yep, there was a list of white supremacist beliefs. One of them was Judeo-Christian value. Just want you to know. It's white supremacist. The fact that Moses wasn't white, Jesus wasn't white, just details. So there is reason to be concerned over the consequences of the death of these values. You don't get nothing when you destroy them. You get something. The somethings have not been good. All righty, Montclair, New Jersey, Maureen. Oh, we had to do, hold on there, Maureen. It's time for, yes, all right, we'll get you when we come back. Relief Factor has a good deal for you. You try it for 3 weeks, and they have the most honest statement I know of. If it doesn't work in 3 weeks, it's not going to work. Well, in some cases it does, but in general, it'll either work in 3 weeks or it doesn't work. So you will know for $19.95 whether it works. Yes, that's pretty reasonable to me. Sounds reasonable. It's called the Trial Pack, 3-week trial pack to get out of pain. Go to relieffactor.com or call 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384. Look up the 3-week quick start, $19.95. Do it for your family and your friends. They want you back to normal. and you can get them back to normal. Relief factor.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Hey there, folks. I'm talking to Pastor John MacArthur. He's with Grace Community Church in Los Angeles for a few years now. Something has happened in American public life where the church has been forced to be more political. There are many people who say that, look, I simply cannot vote for a man who is thrice divorced. He was clearly a womanizer. He can be vulgar. He boasts. He's not behaving in a way that seems to me consonant with Christian faith. What do you say to people who object to Donald Trump?
Well, Donald Trump isn't our pastor, and he's not a theologian. He's a president. That's a function of leadership. Look, if I have a brain tumor, I don't need to know the doctrinal statement of the brain surgeon. I just want to know that he's been in somebody's brain and got back out again, and the guy's alive. So this is competency. This is competency we're talking about, and some measure of upholding biblical morality. If you have to choose between Donald Trump's view of morality, whatever it was in the past is irrelevant. What it is now is closer to Christianity than the other party. And again, what I was saying earlier is simply this: politics has been reduced to a moral battle. I can't vote for somebody who advocates same-sex marriage, transgender invasion into the lives of children, doing medical procedures and allowing all of that. And you have to go for the party that is closest in its policies to what is a biblical morality, that we have to fight to hang on to whatever of that is left.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
This is CNN's Cuomo, Fredo, as he doesn't like to be called, talking about how to politicize a death. Eric, video cut 2.
Herman Cain. Yes, he supported the president. The president says he was a good friend of his. We wish his family well, and we wish that he rest in peace. And I wish that this president have no peace until he thinks about what he's exposing people to. He didn't even mention that Mr. Cain was at his rally among the maskless masses right before he was diagnosed. Now, maybe he didn't get it there. Sure as hell didn't help.
But you, leaving your house, going out for dinner when you had the coronavirus and were under quarantine, that's fine, right? Because you're not a rube. You're not a deplorable. You're
Watch Prager University courses anywhere in the
Trump
world for free, and we want to keep it that way, but we can only do it if we have your support. Go to PragerUniversity.com and donate today. It's fundraising month for PragerU. You're worried about America? We are fighting, and we're doing a good job. We're not where we want to be, even with 1 billion views a year, and even though 65% are under the age of 35. We need to have billions of views a year. PragerU.com, 833-PragerU. Ultimate Issues Hour. The collapse of the Judeo-Christian tradition in Europe led to Nazism, fascism, and communism. What will it lead to in America? That's the subject. Back to you, Maureen, Montclair, New Jersey. Hi.
Hi, thank you for taking my call, Dennis.
Mm-hmm.
I was enjoying listening to the show. It correlates with a lot of the thoughts I have regarding the same topic. I've been involved in scouting for about 20 years, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Campfire Girls. And what I would say is that based on my studies, which are about American scouting and global scouting, scouting was a proxy for these Judeo-Christian values since its founding 110 years ago, and it was outlawed in Russia or in the Soviet Union right after the Russian Revolution, and then in Italy and Germany in the 1930s. So you could see how this additional values-based system with daily and weekly observances of good deeds and so forth was removed by fiat. And of course, as you were making a point before, more evil things can seep in when that additional structure is taken away. And I believe relatively, we persevered longer, pretty much into the 70s with strong scouting in the United States. And that made it a little easier, I think, for us to hold on in this nation.
But of course, the left destroyed that too, because everything the left touches, it destroys. That is one of the key understandings of life. If you don't understand that, you're either a leftist. Even leftists actually can agree. They do want to destroy everything they touch because they think everything is poisoned already by white supremacy, imperialism, racism. So I'm not sure even a leftist would disagree. We destroy everything we touch. That's right, because it's worth destroying. I think if they're honest, they would acknowledge what I say is right. It's the naive, weak, cowardly liberal who is not a bad person, but is weak and doesn't confront the left. Alan Dershowitz and Dave Rubin are examples of liberals who confront the left, but they're very rare. All right, and let's go to Charlie in Los Angeles. Hello, Charlie.
Hi, Dennis.
Hi.
I just want to remind you of something you said about exactly 42 years ago. And that was quoting someone else who said, I refuse to accept that the only thing wrong with wanton cruelty is that I don't like it.
That's right. Yeah. You heard me say that 42 years ago?
Yes, I did. Just almost exactly at Brandeis Bardeen.
Oh.
Wow!
That's a low price!
We were both kids.
Yeah, I was your ball boy at the tennis court.
Good. You're one of the few living people who can vouch for the fact that I played tennis.
Wow! That's a low price!
That's really funny. But yes, that you remembered that quote is really, really significant. I'm very touched that you called. That's right. I refuse to believe that the only thing wrong with... That is not my quote. I quoted that from one of the leading liberal thinkers who was an atheist himself. He knew that there's a big quandary with regard to atheism. Because if there isn't a God who says that wanton cruelty is evil, then who says it? You? Okay. When you look at the young people who are smashing the anarchy, the nothing, the hatred, the emptiness in their eyes and in their deeds, do you not ask yourself, gee, what caused this? What produces these kids, these middle-class kids? These nothings? Well, how did we produce such a great number of lost souls? The death of religion has consequences, ladies and gentlemen. That's the problem with the secular conservative. They think that when the founding fathers said, "In God we trust," or called for a day of prayer, that was a cute, sweet thing that they did. The founders understood without God and religion, there is no American experiment. Secular conservatives do not understand that. They too have been poisoned by their education. That is the irony. And I love these people, and they do great good. But they don't have a solution. They don't even understand that it is a huge part of the problem. I am one of the few well-known religious conservatives. The vast majority of conservatives are secular, of the what they call public intellectuals, and they're terrific. I can give you names, but I don't know. I don't know if it's necessary. They don't realize there is no hope for conservatism without the Judeo-Christian underpinnings upon which this country was founded. It's I do wonder what do they think when they read Washington and the others, that without in his farewell address, speaking about the necessity of religion to the morals of a society, that without God and religion there's no chance for them to, I guess they just dismiss it. Oh well, it's old-fashioned thinking. Look at Europe after World War I. Look at Minneapolis today.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.
For almost 20 years, I've been searching for evidence of one of the greatest miracles of the entire Bible, the miraculous parting of the Red Sea.
Tim, the first question most people ask is, where's Mount Sinai? My first question as a geographer is, where was the sea that was parted and crossed?
So what do you think the crossing site, where would that be?
Well, for once, I'm going to follow the conventional argument here.
When I look at the Exodus story through the eyes of a scientist, then it contains a lot of observations which just make sense to modern science.
I think it is possible to demonstrate that it took place in close proximity to Egypt.
I know that some people would say, well, there were probably 5,000, maybe 20,000 Israelites.
This matter of large numbers is a very, very thorny issue.
There has to be enough Israelites in order to make Pharaoh and the rest of Egypt scared.
Whether the 10 plagues happened is a miracle. Whether the Red Sea parted is a miracle. Archaeology cannot prove or disprove a miracle.
Make the sea small, put it close to Egypt, all of a sudden it calls into question the biblical text itself.
And you cast their pursuers into the depths as a stone into mighty waters.
Where were these ancient lakes and what is now all desert?
And what sort of people could stand the strength of the wind that would part that depth of water? Nobody could stand and walk that land bridge in that sort of wind. It would be impossible.
Why is it important to think about these things?
At the end of the day, we're really talking about a miraculous event of unprecedented proportion, of God's miraculous saving power.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
I watched that hearing yesterday, the House Judiciary Committee. I played a lot of it on the show 2 days ago. I've never been more embarrassed to be an American. I mean, if you were a foreign citizen watching that, you'd say, we're out of our mind. What did you make of that?
It was cringeworthy. And I say this as a former committee chairman. I chaired a committee in the House for 2 terms. You look, the chairman of a committee can operate the committee in a
Go to college to succeed in life? Jeremy Boring, the CEO of the Daily Wire, doesn't think so. He explains why in the new, truly important video for PragerU. See it at prageru.com, where we teach what isn't taught. I want to read to you something from 1834. I'm Dennis Prager, final segment of this edition of the Ultimate Issues Hour, Tuesdays, 3rd hour each week. What's going to happen with the collapse of Judeo-Christian values in America? We saw what happened in Europe after they collapsed after World War I, Nazism, fascism, communism. What will we have in America? We are headed toward a variation of communism and fascism together from the left. And they may prevail. 1834, perhaps the greatest German poet, Heinrich Heine, who was a secular Jew who actually converted to Protestantism in order to be accepted in society, he claimed, but it doesn't matter. I'm just giving you his identity. It's 99 years before Hitler came to power in Germany. This is what he wrote. Christianity, and that is its greatest merit, has somewhat mitigated that brutal German love of war, but it could not destroy it. Should that subduing talisman, the cross, be shattered, the frenzied madness of the ancient warriors, the insane berserk rage of which later Nordic bards have spoken and sung so often, will once more burst into flame. This talisman, the cross, is fragile, and the day will come when it will collapse miserably. Then a play will be performed in Germany, which will make the French Revolution look like an innocent walk in the park. That talisman, and this is a Jew speaking, that talisman is fragile in America too. And if it breaks, it won't be the German lords of the past that are unleashed. It'll just be the crappy part of human nature that loves to control others and subdue and destroy. Nihilism is the substitute for that talisman. So that's what's happening in America today. That's why it's worth fighting, because the cross is fragile. I'm Dennis Prager.